By now, we've all heard, and if you haven't, the general consensus is iRacing force feedback is sloppy, it's numb, it feels like doo-doo, and other sims like Assetto Corsa or Le Mans Ultimate feel so much better. But let's talk about how to fix iRacing. There's an app called Marvin's awesome iRacing app, and I made a video about this about 4 months ago, but now that I've got a whole season of driving under my belt, an iRacing championship, and have gained over 1,000 iRating in a single season, I wanted to make an update and tell everybody about it again. So if you're one of those people that thinks iRacing feels super numb, or maybe you just don't even really understand what you're supposed to be feeling in the car, stick around and I'm going to show you how to fix that. Marvin's awesome iRacing app is a third-party force feedback software that lets us fine-tune that force feedback signal so we can better understand what the car's doing and just overall get better feel and tune it to however we want. You can find a link to Marvin's app right down in the description below. Before we can make any changes in Marvin's app, we need to do some housekeeping and make sure our equipment matches our software and our software matches our software. What I mean by that is we want to make sure that the wheel range in both the sim and whatever wheelbase manufacturer software you have is the same. For me, I drive sports cars, that's all I drive, so angles at 900% in both iRacing and Sim Pro. No matter what software or manufacturer you're using, if you're holding the wheel straight on and you turn the wheel either direction 90 degrees, the wheel in the game should match that identically. If it doesn't, you know you have a mismatch and we need to get that figured out first. The next most important step is to open up the settings in an iRacing session. Make sure you're on the driving tab and click wheel force feedback. Up at the very top here, you're going to have enable force feedback. We're going to turn this off. We're turning this off because we're not using iRacing's force feedback anymore. We're going to use Marvin's. So make sure this is off, apply and close, and then we're all done. Now that we've got that knocked out of the way, it's time to open up Marvin's app and do a little housekeeping and start tweaking some settings. In case yours looks different from mine, go to the hamburger menu in the top left and make sure you're on racing wheel. Now that we're all in the same section, we're going to look at overall strength. The wheel force is whatever your wheelbase is capable of outputting at its maximum. My wheelbase, the SimMagic Alpha Ultimate, can do 23 Newton meters, so I've got wheel force set to 23 Newton meters. Now, whether you prefer strength or max force, it doesn't really matter. The numbers don't really matter. What we're looking at is the percentage here in strength. So this is the maximum that it will output based on your wheel force. So the maximum my wheelbase will output is 55% of 23, which, because of math, works out to the game needing to give me a 41.5 Newton meter signal to output 23 Newton meters. To put this simply, my wheelbase isn't going to rip my arms off. If you've got a wheelbase that can push around 20 Newton meters, then I recommend starting at about 50% on strength. If you've got something lower, like 5 to 8 Newton meters, then I recommend much higher, closer to 100%, because we want to be able to use all of your wheelbase's capability, and if you're running 50% on, say, a 5 Newton meter wheelbase, you're going to be losing out on a lot of detail. And in short, as long as your max force is lower than your wheel force, you'll essentially never run into clipping. Now let's start tuning some actual settings in Marvin's. Looking at the algorithm section here, I've got the detail booster selected. I've got my detail boost set to 150% and the boost bias at 50. The detail boost itself is boosting the actual signal that we're getting by this percentage, and the bias is mixing the boosted signal with the iRacing signal, and this is what we're going to use to fine-tune that output so that we can actually start to understand what the car's doing and start learning and start getting faster. Quickly covering some other options in the racing wheel tab. If we scroll down, we've got crash and curb protection. I've changed these a little bit for me, but I don't recommend doing so. Just leave those what they are from the factory. That way you don't, mess up your hand or injure yourself, especially if you've got a high Newton meter wheelbase. Let's go back to our hamburger menu and select steering effects. If we scroll down a little bit, we can see that I'm not using understeer or oversteer and have opted for seat of the pants. The seat of the pants feeling is basically when you're driving through a corner and the rear end of the car is stepped out just slightly and the car naturally wants to countersteer just a little bit, but you're not quite drifting. It's more of that neutral slide kind of feeling. That's what this is trying to accomplish. If we look at the increased force strength of 5%, I've actually turned this down for me personally because, like I said, I've got a high Newton meter wheelbase, and so that default percentage was just too much, and I felt like I was having to make little corrections that I shouldn't have been having to make, but this 5% adds just enough of that binding feeling that I could get that sensation, I could feel what the car was doing, but I didn't have to make an additional correction. It felt more natural. So if you're brand new or you don't quite understand what it is you're supposed to be feeling, what I want you to do is adjust the detail boost, the boost bias, and seat of the pants. Go ahead and copy these settings as you see on the screen, and if you've got a lower strength wheelbase, try raising the seat of the pants feeling, maybe 10 or 15%, or just setting it to default. Regardless of what wheelbase you're on, you're going to notice a difference, and what I want you to do is run those settings without tweaking them for a month or two and get used to how that feels and really be cognizant of all of the different feelings and sensations that you get on track. Don't immediately try and go faster, just spend a lot of time listening to what the car is telling you and what you're feeling in the wheel. Pay very close attention to when you're driving over different road surfaces, over curbs, anti-cuts, or even that weird kind of green concrete stuff on the outside of curbs that's not quite the grass, but isn't quite the asphalt. As you go through corners, be cognizant of that wheel rotation from the rear end scooting out and the car wanting to naturally countersteer just that little bit, and find when that binding feeling comes in. And now, all that said, if something is very obviously wrong, like if you're going through a corner and the wheel is really giving you a lot of input from that seat of the pants setting, dial that back, because we don't want to have to make corrections that shouldn't exist or that we shouldn't have to. We want it to be exaggerated, but not so exaggerated that it's totally messing us up. The goal here is to exaggerate the detail enough that we can learn the different feelings and sensations that we need so that we can, over time, dial those back and get to a more accurate and natural feeling in the wheel. Now, if you're somebody who has already been racing for a while and you understand those feelings and you just kind of feel like iRacing is numb, go ahead and use the app, set it up on the default settings, and give it a go and see how you like it. Remember to give it just as much time as you would anything else. Really feel everything out. Don't just try it for a couple race sessions and then be done. Run it for a month or two and really just kind of see what that difference is. If you're still trying to learn what all these feelings are, keep in mind that later down the road, we are going to turn those settings down because we don't need all that exaggerated detail. We want more detail, but not so much that we're making corrections that we shouldn't be. If you're a new driver or you're one of those people that is just struggling to understand what it is you're supposed to be feeling, this app is, like I said, it's a game changer. It's going to help you do that, and you're going to get faster with it. And I can't wait to see you guys do that. I think Marvin's is not only a fantastic force feedback software, but an amazing training tool for exactly that reason. That's going to be it for me on this one. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope this helps you understand Marvin's a little bit more. I hope it interests you enough to give it a shot, and I hope you just overall get faster and better. If you have any questions, please comment down below. Let me know what you've got, and I will do my best to help you out, point you in the right direction if I don't have an answer for you immediately. Big shout out to all of my channel members here on YouTube. Thank you so much for supporting me. If you would like to support me as well, please consider becoming a channel member. And if live streaming is more your thing, I'm live every Thursday night, and a big thank you to all of my subscribers over there as well. That's it for this one. Let me know in the comments what you want to see next, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.